Okay, this is part of the presentation I gave you in the reading in the previous unit. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on the 7 ways or the 7 Mudas. Again, we're going to get down into the fundamental what is lean theory and get an appreciation for that. And if you have any questions, I want you to ask me, okay? Before we start, people talk about lean being good for factories, but it's good for everything. So the biggest waste you'll find are in the office or administrative environments. So on the next slide, let's define what manufacturer is. According to Webster, manufacture is the act of or process of producing something. It doesn't have to be something material or anything. It could be a service. It could be administrative services. It could be anything. As long as you're doing something, you're producing something, you're in the business of manufacture. And that's what lean applies to, is that process. Okay, here's the way it works, the traditional formula. It's called the principle of added cost. You know how much it costs you to make something. You know how much profit you want to make, 35% or whatever. So you do the cost plus the profit. And that's your sales price, right? Makes sense? This is the way it's traditionally done. It's the principle of added cost. Well, what Toyota did is they said, well, look, using the old supply and demand economics, sales price is actually fixed by the market, right? Supply versus demand. And if we subtract out of that sales price the cost, that's your profit. You have no control over your profit. The market sets the sales price, and your profit is just basically sales price minus cost. The only thing you can fix is cost. This is the theory of cost reductions. The less cost you have, the better your profit. So how big does a 10% cost reduction have? You have 2 companies, both are selling about $50 million in sales. They both cost them $45 million to make the $50 million they're selling. One company goes off and reduces by 10% the cost, so it's another 5% they reduce, or $5 million they save. That $5 million goes straight to the bottom line. So what the old company do it the traditional way is basically just going to be stuck with $5 million. The one that saved the $5 million, their profit is $10 million. Cost saves go straight to the bottom line. If you were just, say, variable cost for the other company to make the same amount of profit, they'd have to double their sales. And I don't know if any of you have been working in sales. That's tough to do, to double a sale. So what Toyota did is says, look, we're only going to do those things that create or add value. And again, value being what the customer's willing to pay for. The customer's not going to pay you money for it. It has no value. And it's called a waste. Unless the customer's willing to pay for it, it is a waste. Well, let's learn a little bit of Japanese. The word for waste in Japanese is called Muda. Traditionally, there are 7 categories of Muda, or 7 categories of waste. And once you get these things in your mind, you can start to spot them a bit. Now, what I'd like for you to do is as you go through these wastes, or these Mudas, I'd like for you to think of examples in your own personal lives, or your personal job. First one is waiting and waiting and waiting. We've all been there, where you're waiting for somebody to show up for a meeting, waiting in a doctor's office, waiting for parts, waiting for a ride, waiting for something. Customer's not going to pay you to sit there and wait. It's not value added. Overproduction. We used to, the last factory, they actually went out of business. I did some work with. They never really did. It was too little too late. But what they would do is if they had an order for 20 parts, they'd make 24 just in case 4 of them didn't work. Those other 4 were just sitting on the shelf. Well, that's money just sitting there. That's overproduction. That's a waste. Customers are not going to pay you to make more than they need. They're only going to pay you for what you need. Again, think of some examples in your own life, your own work. My personal life, we needed about 4 cans of beans for a picnic we were going to go on. My wife bought 7 cans. And those 3 extra cans have been sitting there for 2 years now. Again, that's overproduction. The more you move stuff around, the more you have to pay for it. Forklifts cost money, trucks cost money, ships cost money. And if you think about it, this has been one of the biggest reasons why companies are moving back onshore, because the cost of shipping stuff from overseas and the handling, all that, costs a lot of money. Think of all the times you had to spend money just moving things around, especially in the office. Processing or over-processing, another thing. In this slide, you can actually see this is an actual customer service process. You've all been in that phone call where you got to press about 20 buttons to get to talk to somebody, if you get to talk to somebody else. This is over-processing. I took my car to get it fixed, and while I was there, the guy decided to do a detail on it. He tried to charge me later like $100 extra for detailing. That's over-processing. I wasn't willing to pay that. We had a little discussion, and we negotiated a bit. I finally gave him $50, but that's the last time I'll ever see him. It's where you do extra stuff the customer's not willing to pay for. If you do that, it's over-processing, and that's a waste. That's a muda. You can't, probably not familiar with this. This is a suspension arm for one of my companies makes this, and it's actually a cast part. Inside they're like little micro cracks, and it's what will happen is those things will bend and like a paperclip kind of thing. Eventually, those micro cracks will cause that thing to break, and the tire, the tire just gets slammed up into the wheel well, and you're stuck beside the road. This is a defect. The cost of fixing things that went broken is astronomical. This is a muda. My own office example, we gave out certificates for a Greenbelt class, and 2 of the certificates had the wrong names on it. We had to go back and fix those certificates, but we also had to reframe them and everything like that. A lot of work. Those 2 defects probably cost probably about an hour and a half extra work for us. Customer's not going to pay you for that. Motion. We've all seen those guys and women that look real busy, but they're not getting anything done. That's because they're moving around, not getting much done. It's painful, and I'll deny this if you say something to my wife, but it's painful to watch her in the kitchen, running, fetching spices or whatever it is. A lot of motion. This is a muda. Customer's not going to pay you extra money because you put extra time on your feet moving around. If you have inventory, you have money sitting on the shelf. Again, I've got those 3 cans of beans. It's not much, and $1.50, whatever it is. But that's $1.50 I could be doing something else with. Inventory is money. Office supplies, extra computers. It takes up space, and it just takes money. The less inventory you have, the less muda you have. Now the inventory, this slide, think of it like a water, right? High water mark. If you have inventory, it can cover up things like supplier issues. They're not very reliable. Your processes, you make a lot of mistakes, so you got incapable processes. Your productivity is kind of shaky. Your training, so you really, you need inventory will take care of your training while they're gone. Long setups. You got long setups, you got to have inventory to keep you going while you're doing your setup. Any kind of quality problems will cover up, or imbalance lines. These are like all sharks under the water waiting to bite you. And inventory hides those for you. If you're going to fix a problem, you got to be able to see it first.